Newsradio 600 KOGO. It's San Diego Business Saturday. I'm Sully. Welcome to your weekend. Lots of stuff going on in the air today with us. Boy, what a week on Wall Street. We wiped $1 trillion off the table Monday. By Thursday, we got a huge chunk of it back. Tom Bacarro, author of The Divided Era, Fox Business contributor, is going to join us in just a second here. Also, I'm going to break down the Amazon effect. We'll also talk to Christina Andrade. She's from UCSD, also the Junior League. She's instructor and coordinator for the Service Learning Program for international students at UCSD. Building leaders, so we're looking forward to talking about that. San Diego Business Saturdays on the air. Okay, wow. Did everybody buckle up for this week? Because I don't think any of you knew. I certainly didn't know what this thing was going to entail with respect to the China trade deal. And as a result of that, we saw $1 trillion wiped off the table on Monday in the bloodletting that happened on Wall Street. And what a great example of fear and greed. Because by Thursday, you had 3 up days. 20 of the S&P companies posted the biggest sales surprises in earnings season. And it was all sort of much ado about nothing. I mean, look, I'm not going to say that the dip didn't occur. I mean, we were staring down the barrel, 26,656, I think on April 22nd, right? We had kind of a slow fade down to, 26,000 and change on May 6th. And then we dropped like any number of analogies I use. Dick Cheney's hunting partner. We went all the way down to 25 and change. But boy, I'll tell you, by Thursday, as I keep saying, it was really significant. Stocks rebounded with the S&P logging its biggest 2-day gain in more than a month Wednesday. So even Steve Mnuchin was upbeat. The Treasury Secretary told the Senate panel that administration is going to be involved very soon back in Beijing for more talks with the Chinese. Jobless claims dropped 16,000 to 212. Housing starts climbed. And the best news of all, the absolute best news of all, was what the Fed President, Tom Barkin, said: there's no case for a rate hike. At least not yet. Now, I'm going to add to that. Wait until the trade conflict gets a little juicier, because it's probably going to prompt a cut by a couple of basis points. Do you guys know what a basis point is? I was talking to Ted and LaDonna in the mornings this week. As you know, I'm doing San Diego Morning News with these guys for George for the time being. And I was asking them, does anybody really understand when the Fed increases interest rates by a basis point? What does that mean exactly? Well, it's 1/100%. Think of it that way. So it's not ugly. What matters most to markets right now is this China trade deal. But when you look in terms of really where we're at here, I mean, look, Donald Trump said that the U.S. is going to raise tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods a week ago Friday. Okay, that basically taxes, that's probably the term you could use, nearly all of China's imports, because he's accusing Beijing of backtracking on a deal that was almost cut. And the reason he's taking such a hard stance, I'm going to talk with Tom Bacarro about, is number one, the only thing Chinese understand is strength. He got their attention. We're not going to get China to change their trade practices by writing a letter with unicorn stickers on it. It's not going to happen. And by the way, I got a lot of email from you this week from Newsradio 600 KOGO, as well as the Big Biz Show, asking me what is a tariff. A tariff, simply put, is a tax levied on imported goods. In this case, the stuff coming in from China. Everything from cars to medical devices to those little umbrellas in your drinks, the lid on your peanut butter jar, oftentimes, the plastics industry, dog leashes, spinach. By the way, some of that medical equipment I just talked about could affect companies right here in San Diego, like Illumina and ResMed and Acon Laboratories. Even cars, automobiles, automobile parts. You might be surprised to hear that Volvo, VW, who else is it? Ford and Buick all have manufacturing ties to China, and not just parts, full-blown auto assembly. But I'm here to tell you, and you can quote me on this, and you might be able to slap me around in a couple of months, but I don't think so. We're going to win this deal, and I'll tell you why. China is an economic predator. China's economy, because they're an economic predator that steals IT and IP, because they sell their labor for dirt cheap and they sell their parts for dirt cheap, they cannot withstand a trade war with the U.S. The U.S. can. The fundamentals of our economy are the strongest in the world. What did I just tell you what happened this week? I mean, honestly, think about this. Jobless claims. Look at the open-air indicators. Do you ever walk into a retail store these days? They're looking for bodies to fill in behind the cash register. I mean, honestly, dumb as a bag of hair was a box you did not want to check before to get hired, and now it doesn't matter if you check that box or not. There's just nobody to hire. Jobless claims are down to 212,000. There's no hint of deterioration. Our housing starts are climbing. Wage growth is there. Our economy kills compared to China. And for China, a tariff increase leads to more inflation there. Further escalation is going to bring more of the same, and another slowdown to a Chinese economy. And look at the Chinese yuan's getting crushed against the yen and the euro. They have zero leverage here. But I think the most important thing to remember here is that it's not U.S. citizens, nor is it China that pays tariffs. Let me just repeat that again, because I know Donald Trump has erroneously stated that China's going to be paying taxes. They're not paying anything. China doesn't pay tariffs. It's the American importers, the American companies that import Chinese goods that pay what, in effect, is a tax increase and may pass it on to U.S. consumers if they continue to use Chinese parts, Chinese goods, and such. So stop with the narrative that U.S. citizens are going to pay taxes, or even the Chinese are paying. They're not paying anything. It's not happening. I'll tell you how this is all going to affect your wallet in a minute. Newsradio 600 KOGO, San Diego Business Saturday. Good to have you along. I'm really happy to have Tom Del Bacarro with me. Tom is a stalwart on my show, on the Big Biz Show, with Russ and Sully. Every weekday on national television, but I'm also going to make him a regular here on San Diego Business Saturday, because he's not only the author of The Divided Era, but he is a Fox News and Fox Business contributor, and he can give basically he can either shoot down everything I said or he can agree with me. But I'm sure there's no middle ground here. Tom, great to have you along, bud.
Hey, great to be on. How are you doing today?
Good to talk to you. So you heard my sort of diatribe about this entire thing. Do you think China is in the position to win a trade war? And do you think Donald Trump, his negotiative stance here is spot on? Because I do. I personally think the way he's negotiating this deal, he realizes the position of strength that we are in as an economy.
Yeah, let's start right there. If the economy was only growing 1.8% now, I don't think Trump would be taking the same stance. It would be riskier for the American economy. But as you rightly point out, the indicators are pretty good if you look at consumer spending. I like the open air indicators. I was just walking by a place near where I live, and there's help wanted signs. I can't seem to fill it. So the labor market is pretty tight. Consumer spending is good. So if ever we were going to reset this relationship with China when it comes to trade, and you're right, China, I like the word predator in the sense that they're very, very aggressive. They're buying ports around the world. They want to be everywhere and do everything on their terms. However, they are vulnerable. And, you can never actually trust their figures for how much they're growing, but even they've admitted that they're in trouble. And, of course, their stock market is not doing well either compared to the United States. So if ever we're going to reset this relationship, now's the time. Now, look, my friends on the right talking, look, I'm for free trade, and they say this is going to hurt American consumers. And you're right, importers pay the tariff, and they'll pass on some of it as much as they can.
Wait, let's stop down there for a second. Hang on a second. They'll pass it on if they choose to.
They can.
Well, but here's the other piece too: is that if they chose to still import from China, they've got a choice where they. I mean, look, I know there's some things that you can only get from China, but for the most part, most of these importers have a choice on where they can do business. It doesn't necessarily mean that U.S. prices are going to go up. Because I promise you, if I'm a widget manufacturer and my widgets are coming from China and they were cheaper, but it's cheaper for me to go get them elsewhere because of the tariffs, I'm going to go elsewhere. And I think that might happen. I think that's the law of unintended consequences here, don't you think?
Yes, and also there was a story this week about manufacturers saying they're going to leave China because they see this as a long-term problem, meaning the United States and China not getting along on this issue, and they're not going to wait around for China to do the right thing. So I did hear an interesting discussion this week, which I think your listeners would care about as well. Again, my friends on the right are saying, well, this is hurting consumers. Tariffs are a bad idea. It shouldn't be done. On the other hand, China is clearly a geopolitical threat in a lot of places. The answer is, as a country, should we sacrifice a little to make sure that China doesn't get these advantages?
All right, stay there. You pose such a fantastic question, and he's absolutely right. I'm going to keep you longer. Tom Del Bacarro, author of The Divided Era, politicalvanguard.com, Fox News contributor, Fox Business contributor on both of their websites. Heck of a writer. He's an attorney, one of the smartest guys I know in the economy. More about the China trade deal and what it means to your wallet coming up in just 1 second. Do you think prices are going to go up? I'm going to tell you exactly how much it's going to cost you in just a few minutes. San Diego Business Saturday, News Radio 600 KOGO. San Diego Business Saturday, News Radio 600 KOGO. I'm Sully, your host. You know, you can go watch this broadcast, even though you're driving around Southern California. It might be in LA, it might be in San Diego, it might be out in Yuma. But you can go to KOGO.com, keyword Sully. And we also tape this for TV. So if you want to watch the show, you can watch the show. Later in the program, Christina Andrade from UCSD, also the Junior League. She is the instructor and coordinator for the Service Learning Program for international students at UCSD, inspiring students to be volunteers and leaders. We thought we'd feature her this week. I saw her over at KOSI, I think last week. You can catch me at KOSI a few mornings a week there, also right here on San Diego Morning News on News Radio 600 KOGO with Ted and LaDonna, handling the business stuff for George in the meantime. Also, George's market updates every afternoon at 2 p.m. All right, let's talk to Tom Del Bacarro some more. Tom Del Bacarro wrote the book, The Divided Era. He also is the purveyor of the website Political Vanguard. He is a Fox News contributor, a Fox Business contributor. And I'm here to say we're going to win this deal, Tom. And I look at it. I think that we have turned our heads for a long time. And I know you and I talked about this on television last week, how we have traded cheaper prices and cheap labor in exchange for them stealing our stuff and pulling it out the back door and copying everything from Louis Vuitton purses to intellectual property. So I think Donald Trump is taking a different stance here politically, but economically speaking and negotiatively, he's making it so it's going to be better on us as consumers, and it probably is going to hurt for a little bit, and then it's not going to hurt. Is that an accurate assessment of what do you think is going to happen over the next 6, 12, 18 months?
Yeah, I do. And our leverage is never going to be better for the reasons you mentioned earlier and we've discussed many times. Our economy is growing over 3%. Their economy is dropping, and there's actually discontent in China among consumers because they would like some cheap American goods as well. And it's actually hurting the government standing, and they have to think of a face-saving way out of this. Now, look, Trump made an interesting comment I think it was 2 days ago. He said that we were 95% there, and then some hiccups occurred essentially. Now, was it really 95% or was it 70%? It's hard to know with Trump because he's ever the salesman. But look, if we inject the smallest amount of politics in this we can, Trump doesn't want to go into 2020 with a weak economy.
Sure.
So I think he's going to want to make a deal and then the markets can calm down. Remember, at the start of this year, at the end of last year, you and I were talking a lot about market volatility because the Fed was an uncertainty.
Sure.
The Fed's a certainty now. I actually think they should cut interest rates right now because the economy is growing well. There's no sign of inflation, which is something supply-siders like me and Larry Kudlow, Stephen Moore, Art Laffer, Steve Forbes said all along, which is when you expand the number of goods and services, prices will tend to drop, not go up with demand, because the more products chasing create demand, but the more products you have, the likelihood that prices can fall. So I think they should cut rates now and test it, because if it gets to 4% and we still have no inflation, then the Fed's entire strategy for how to use interest rates would be debunked. But nevertheless, returning to trade, I think in the next 6 months, a trade deal will be made. Trump doesn't want to go into 2020 risking the economy. So the question is, and as you have talked to me many times also, and Reagan was this way too, you know, you draw your hard lines and then you make a deal which requires you to do some compromising.
Sure. I have to agree with you. I mean, look, and even though this week Fed chairman came out and talked about the fact that we're probably not going to get a rate hike, you know, you have to understand when Tom Barkin talks, he's different than past Fed chairmen in that he acts very swiftly and he speaks very plainly. And right now he says there's no case for a rate hike, but there might be a case for a rate cut. So I think you're absolutely right. You're going to see some changes there and quickly. Now, one of the things I want to discuss about this is the market, because, you know, President Trump starts off with a threat a couple of weekends ago to raise tariffs on $200 billion in annual imports, take it from 10% to 25%, and then also effectively put tariffs on the remaining piece of imports from China. You have to understand, China puts tariffs on 97% of the U.S. imports going into China. We've historically only put tariffs on 42% of theirs. So that's part of it. The other piece of this is, look, even though markets have been a bit rough, Tom, we've seen, we have to keep days like last Monday in perspective, especially when you experience the longest bull market in history, which is roughly 3,700 and now 50 days. You might want to remember that. I mean, look at the S&P bottomed out in March of 2009 after the U.S. financial crisis. And since then, stocks have grown by well over 300%. We got a great chart. I don't know if the guys can put it up there for our TV viewers here. And once again, if you're listening to us on Newsradio 600 KOGO across the Southland, you can also go to KOGO.com, keyword Sully, and watch the TV version of this. But we have a great chart that I put together. Actually, I put it together for all the people that work here at Clear Channel, all the people that work at KOSI, and all the people that work over at the Big Biz Show, to show all of my friends and co-employees that, look, if you look at a chart going back to 2009 and where we are right now, it ain't that bad. We had a little bit of a blip down to 25,302, but look, I mean, the markets got roiled, but they came back. This is such a great example, Tom, of fear and greed, is it not? I mean, it's fundamentally, we need to go through this with China, but the markets are reacting on fear and greed. It's just so interesting that we're almost, you know, the Great Recession was ugly, Christmas was ugly, and don't you wish you got into Christmas when everybody else got out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about it. The business side of doing business is going well, so the market wants to rise. Occasionally, government action is spooking the market, whether it be interest rates or whether it be tariffs,
sure,
right?
Right.
So that's business people saying we can make money. You know, theoretically, the market should reflect that this company is in good condition with good prospects. But you and I, as you described, fear and greed doesn't exactly match up with, you know, tell us what your quarterly profits were. So again, I think the market long-term in America is better than in other places because the United States reformed its tax code, its business tax code. It makes more sense now to invest in America than it does just about anywhere else. So I think long-term prospects. I, like Stephen Moore, don't agree that there's business cycles you can do nothing about. If we slash taxes again and regulations, the economy would boom and go even further. So we're in a good space. I think this tariff issue is a short-term issue. I don't expect everything to be fixed because it's such a complicated and lots of money and angles and legal issues involved. But I do think Trump's going to make a deal, and I do think that will release the economy again. We'll get a new breath of energy, and I think a year from now we're going to have growth roughly the same as we are now.
So, Tom, let me ask you something, because and we don't typically get political on this show, but I'm going to let you vent a little bit. Why do you suppose that so many past presidents and so many past Congresses and so many past administrations let China get away with effectively what we as manufacturers in this country and we as consumers in the country turned our heads away from? And that was, literally the theft of IP and letting them sort of run roughshod over us in this tariff war. I mean, it's sort of been a status quo for several decades. Why do you suppose that was the case? And is President Trump potentially making a mistake with respect to state affairs by doing this? And if you take a 50,000-foot view of the world stage, could he be harming us, politically, with sound economic negotiations? What's your take on that?
Well, I think what we can see from what's going on right now is this is no easy thing. It's incredibly complex. It takes a long time, and it has short-term pain. That's not what politicians like to do. They want to be loved all the time. And so I think the reality is that presidents didn't want to do something that could interrupt them politically. But we know, like him or not, and I know your views on Trump, we talked about it many times. Look, the guy's a maverick. He doesn't even, it seems at times he doesn't even consider the political implications. So I think the short answer is it's a very complex problem which politicians tend to shy away from. And Trump, if you remember, very early on in his campaigning, he brought up China and immigration, and he's going to hang on to it. That doesn't mean he's going to change the world. I mean, honestly, the NAFTA agreement isn't some miraculous new rewrite. It's a modification. So he's talking a big game. He wants to get a modification. And I just think other presidents, foreign policy is, for a lot of people in trade or presidents, that's over there. The domestic market is where votes are. Foreign policy is where danger resides.
Yeah, and I think, there is an intersection, though. I mean, look at everything is priced in U.S. dollars on the global exchange. In other words, we are the global currency. And this is why it matters. I mean, if anyone ever thought that we were not in a global economy, today's the day to realize that everything that Europe does, everything that China does, the Japanese markets do, affects us directly because so many U.S. companies do business with them, and we are shareholders of so many of the companies that do business in that direction. So that's a big piece of it. Tom Del Bacarro, Tom, thank you so much. I appreciate it. He is a remarkable guy. I would, if you can, check out his website, politicalvanguard.com. Also, his book, The Divided Era, and check out some of his musings over there at foxbusiness.com and foxnews.com. Good stuff coming up. All right. What do I have? I've got all kinds of things in store for you. I have, I'll tell you how this whole trade thing can affect your wallet in just a second. I'm also going to talk to you about the Amazon effect. And also Christina Andrade, I almost called her Christina Estrada. Christina Andrade joins us from UCSD in just a second here. It is San Diego Business Saturday, News Radio 600 KOGO. Here's news and traffic. News Radio 600 KOGO, San Diego Business Saturday. Good to have you along. Sully here. By the way, you catch me every morning here on News Radio 600 KOGO on the San Diego Morning News with Ted and LaDonna. Also on KUSI in the mornings and, of course, the nationally syndicated Big Biz Show. And you can email me. Just go to the KOGO.com website. You can catch me there. Thanks again to Tom Del Bacarro for swinging by and talking to us from the Divided Era. I had a chance to meet this young lady at KUSI. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. My days run together within this business, but I heard her talking about the Junior League of San Diego, empowering women and supporting transitions aged foster youth. And as you know, I'm the father of 2 daughters, and in my 20 some odd years here on KOGO, you've kind of followed their lives and their successes and their challenges and stuff. So anytime I hear empowering women, I'm a big fan. But she's also much more than that. She's an instructor and a coordinator for the Service Learning Program for International Students at UCSD. I've driven by UCSD. Actually, many of you don't know this, but as a freshman in college, I was a medical student at UCSD. And I think we're all happy that I didn't complete any studies there. I hopped right over to USD and then finished at San Diego State. Yes, I did the university hat trick here as a kid that was born and raised in San Diego. But I spent about 2 seconds at UCSD. Aren't you surprised that guys like me could go to UCSD? Because I couldn't even get into UCSD anymore these days. It's tough getting in there, isn't it?
It is very tough to get in there.
Is it tough to be a professor there, or an instructor there? Is it tough to get in for you guys too?
I would say yes, without tooting my own horn.
Well, no, that's good though. I think you should say that. Okay, first of all, let's do the Junior League first, because I think that's interesting about San Diego. The first thing I said to you when I saw you was I didn't even know what the Junior League was. What is it?
Well, we're an all-women's charitable organization. We've got a 501c3. The Junior League itself is worldwide. In San Diego, we've had our chapter for over 90 years.
Okay.
And it's an organization that leads first with building women leaders. And we do that through community endeavors. So in each city, the chapter looks at the needs of the particular city. Here in San Diego, we currently focus on transition-age foster youth. So there's a big need for support in that area. And that also ends up going hand in hand with human trafficking awareness.
Sure, and I can tell you, former district attorney Bonnie Dumanis was a real supporter of some of the initiatives, especially coming with respect to human trafficking. You guys train women volunteers though as well, right?
We do.
That's
absolutely.
a big piece of this though. Talk about that, because this whole thread with you is about empowering the youth, and specifically with Junior League women. So talk about that a little bit.
So the Junior League provides a lot of leadership training, everything from Toastmasters to months-long training.
Toastmasters is teaching people how to talk.
It is.
I need to go there. So, but you train them to go out and be civic leaders. That's the big piece of this, right?
Absolutely. We have a board management group that you can go through to learn how to sit on a board. Really more things that I've even had time to take advantage of. And when we break into our committees and put on different events in the community, you're really learning through leading. And
some of the events you guys do are your Impact Forum and your Human Trafficking Awareness Rally. You just got through with an event just recently, and that was down in La Jolla Cove, right? It was a wine event.
Right. That's one of our fun ones, but it does raise a lot of money for the cause. So that's the Junior League Food and Wine event in La Jolla Cove.
Okay, I have to ask you this, because when I teased during the week that I was having you on the air on San Diego Business Saturday, I had more than one person email me about something called the Little Black Dress Initiative. Are you familiar with this?
LBDI, of course I am.
All right. What is the LBDI? What is that all about?
So this is to raise awareness for poverty in the workplace.
Okay.
We wear the same little black dress Monday through Friday, every day to work, and a pin that says, ask me about my little black dress.
My crew's laughing in the background. Is like a smelly black dress at the end of the week? Is the idea to get by with just very little? I'm assuming that's what it means.
Yeah, it's to raise awareness of the idea that not everybody has the ability to change their clothes every day, and it brings a lot of meaningful conversations into the workplace about privilege and lack thereof. And yes, at the end we have a party where most of us talk about burning the dresses.
All right, that's good. Hey, her name is Christina Andrade. She is with UCSD. She is an instructor and coordinator for the Service Learning Program for International Students at UCSD. So talk about that. And of course, by the way, if you want more information on the Junior League, jlsd.org. We'll put that up at kogo.com, keyword Sully. But let's talk a little bit about you and your and what you do there at UCSD, because this is interesting. This is a relatively new initiative. When I say new, it wasn't around 20 years ago, I can tell you that. Talk about it.
It is a very new initiative. I think we've been around about 2 years now, and what it is to me is a marriage of my two passions in the workplace, of volunteering and educating students.
Okay.
So we have international students who come here. They come to UCSD, do a quarter or more, and they decide that they want to do more than just learn English, and they'll join the program with me, and studying 6 hours in a classroom and volunteering
Wow.
5 hours a week.
Okay, so and what does that entail? I mean, talk about the metrics of that. When somebody walks in the door, what can they expect?
Well, we group thematically, so I go through major themes of social justice and change, leadership, team building, acknowledging yourself as a leader. I kind of joke at the first day of class that my goal is to change their life forever and the lives of everyone around them. So we have
So small, just a small
goals.
task.
Yeah.
Well, but what's interesting here, you know, and I listen, we can't talk about this without absolutely bringing up the word millennial, and I do a ton of keynote speeches around it, and I can tell you, this millennial sort of thing that happens needs to be taken very seriously, because we're about to see the biggest class shift in this country, the biggest intergenerational wealth transfer in this country. The millennial, who I own a couple of them myself. I raised them, and they're doing great, but they've got a very complex relationship with Wall Street. They have massive spending power. Their income is clustered, and if you measure just the impact, you could make potentially a big difference with respect. So you talk about social change. You talk about the fact that 75% of our employees and 75% of our customers are going to be in that age range. So you're kind of getting them right where they need to be in order to transition, because they're going to be leading our country pretty soon. Talk about, I mean, when you say change the world, you're not lying about that, because we're 6 years away from all that.
And I do mean global reach. So these are, of course, international students visiting UCSD. They're coming from Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, Brazil. And
so they're world leaders.
World leaders, absolutely. And globally, getting a job these days is tough. I think millennials around the world are looking into, especially certain parts of the world, are looking out there at how am I going to graduate with all this education and actually gain employment. And one of my big ways around that is start making a difference now. Set yourself apart, volunteer, care about the world, and opportunities will come.
What's the adaptability sort of feel for that? I mean, are people open-armed about that when you talk to them about that? Is there resistance? Let's face it. If you were teaching this class in the 80s or the 90s, in the era of excess, I bet you would have got some pushback. I'm assuming it's a little different these days. Do they get it, or is there some challenges for you? Is there some speed bumps?
There are always speed bumps. But in terms of seeing it as something that is a resume builder and something that gives them an advantage, I think often they need to be told directly, and then once they realize, it's a wow, and you get the further buy-in.
With respect to the intercultural communications, which is a big piece of this thing, it's interesting to watch. I was born and raised here in San Diego, and for many years, our big concern was communicating with our friends from the South, because we had a mega region called Mexico, and San Diego was part of it, believe it or not. Now do you think San Diego's become, in business-wise, economically speaking, and socially more of a global city? Are we doing a good job? I mean, I know we're becoming a smart city, we're becoming a clean city, technology-wise and economically, but are we doing the right things to make ourselves a player on the world stage?
My San Diego, through my lens, absolutely. That I see the world every single day in my classroom, and yes, absolutely. So
with respect to UCSD, what kind of support do you get from them as a university? Because obviously, UCSD is pretty remarkable. And if you haven't spent time thinking about UCSD, they have their own clean energy footprint where they don't use a single nickel of energy from anybody but what they produce themselves. They are an ecosystem in and of themselves, and they have created more economic impact with respect to entrepreneurs ending up in San Diego, and I realize globally the number's even larger. But as far as the numbers go, for every dollar that we put into our university system, specifically UCSD here in San Diego, $8 comes back to the economy. You're sitting there at the tip of the spear watching this happen. Is there a germination moment that you see? I mean, is there certain times that you're in front and you can see, well, this guy's going to be the next Elon Musk, or this gal's going to be the next Bill Gates, or she's going to end up inventing the cure for cancer? I mean, can you see that from where you're sitting already?
Definitely. I see inspirational students from around the world, and it's amazing to have that first vantage point and that ability to kind of shape. So one of my early students was one of the first female Saudi women to apply to law school when they were first allowed, and now she's one of the first practicing lawyers in Saudi Arabia. Before I let you out of here today, what are you hopeful about with respect to what you see at UCSD and the students? Because obviously,
For a long time, this was a medical school back in the 70s. It was a teaching college for, hence the UCSD Medical Center. Then it turned into a biotech school. Then it turned into a technology school. And now it's turning into a global business school. What are you most hopeful about in all those categories?
I believe that it's just living and breathing the ethos of break things better, try something new.
Break things better.
I believe that's a new tagline I've heard.
That is fantastic.
I'm not sure if they're going to let you borrow it. It's a pretty good one, but
no, I'm taking it. I'll change a couple of words on that, but I'm stealing it. All right, Christina, thank you so much. Will you come back and hang out with us sometime?
Absolutely.
I love it. Christina Andrade. I almost called you Christina Estrada. I don't know why, because I think I have a friend. That's exactly why. I just realized I have a friend named Christina Estrada. Hey, Christina, you might be listening. Christina Andrade, UCSD, and the Junior League of San Diego. Empowering our youth to be volunteers and leaders. All right, coming up, I'm going to tell you what this China trade deal is going to do to the markets. I'm going to tell you what it's going to do to the economy. And I've got big news about Amazon and the Amazon effect. It's San Diego Business Saturday. I'm Sully, Newsradio 600 KOGO. No, that wasn't me clearing my throat. That was the song. News Radio 600 KOGO. San Diego Business Saturday is on the air. Welcome to your weekend. It's going to be a great one. Thanks so much to Christina Estrada from UCSD. Christina Andrade. I did it again. Thanks again to Christina Andrade from UCSD for swinging by. And also Junior League of San Diego. She's fantastic. All right. So, when I was talking to Tom Del Bacarro, a couple things came to mind, and I think part of it was sort of the entire overview of what's happening in the economy with respect to the China trade deal. And again, I just want to say this again. We're going to win the deal for a number of reasons. China's economy cannot withstand a trade war with the U.S. The U.S. can. The fundamentals of our economy is the strongest in the world. I mean, China tried to impose soybeans, tariffs on soybeans a short time ago, and that didn't work out very well for them. They've lost trade wars with Japan. They've lost trade wars with Europe. They're not good at it. And a tariff increase leads to inflation in China and a further slowdown. Plus, they're getting crushed by the yuan's getting crushed by the yen and the euro. So they don't have very much leverage. So we need to take the fear out of this entire process. And one last thing for your cocktail parties over the weekend, your trivia here for the weekend, is the fact that it is not China that pays tariffs. Hear me again. It is not China that pays tariffs. They don't pay a thing. It is the American importers, the American companies that import Chinese goods, Chinese parts, pay what in effect is a tax increase. And they may, in all caps, may pass it on to you and I if, in all caps again, they choose to continue to use Chinese parts and Chinese goods. It's not a foregone conclusion. So the 400-pound gorilla in the room is, how would all this affect your wallet? That's the big question in everyone's mind. Well, and of course, why do I care and why does this matter to me? That's really what this comes down to, right? Well, if these tariffs take effect, you might see prices go up slightly on everyday items like peanut butter, orange juice, jeans. If it goes on a long time, you'll probably feel larger tug, if any, on big ticket items, televisions, refrigerators. For example, a lot of televisions are imported from China. They could cost more if companies increase their prices to cover the cost of the tariff. So let's say raw cost on a TV was $500, right? Now raw cost on a TV goes to $625, $675, okay? Your final price is going to be higher as a result of that. We are a long way away from that. The other thing, too, to realize is that the stuff coming over from China is still going to be another 3 weeks to get here from the time that he imposed the tariff. So, the trade deal could happen. The other thing I want to mention, and I just want to reiterate this because I think this is really important, is that even though the Dow was down 2% and they wiped $1 trillion of equity off the table last Monday, and we recovered so nicely, even though markets have been a bit rough, you have to keep days like this in perspective, especially when you've experienced the longest bull market in history. When you've experienced 3,700 days, you might just want to remember that to get away from the cliff. Guys, show that chart again for me that I made this week. I know that you're listening to us on radio here on Newsradio 600 KOGO, but if you go to KOGO.com, keyword Sully, and either search San Diego Business Saturday or keyword Sully, you can watch the TV version of this broadcast available to you right now. And there's a chart online here. And this is a chart, this is up close, that shows you where we were in 2009 when the Dow was 7,800. And for our radio audience, as you're looking at a chart in your mind's eye, you've seen a point and figure chart where the graph kind of goes up like a hockey stick. There's a couple of blips along the way. And one of those blips, frankly, was Christmas of 2018 when we had a low. We went from 27,000 and change, or 26,000 and change on the Dow, almost in 3 weeks down to 22,000. It was a huge dip. And Christmas Eve 2018 was the bottom of a new cycle. And we thought things were horrible. Well, guess what? If you take a 50,000 foot view and see where we are today, the same thing's happening to us today with respect to what happened to the markets this week. Again, the market bottomed out in March of 2009 after the U.S. financial crisis. Since then, stocks have grown by well over 300%. And here's the other piece of it, too, that's really easy to forget. Only 55% of Americans have investments in the stock market. 55%. So if the stock market is doing well or doing poorly, a lot of people's finances are not affected directly. However, you affect finances. You affect the finances of publicly traded companies. I want to talk about Amazon because there was a number of things going on this week that you heard me report on during San Diego Business Saturday. I beg your pardon, during San Diego Morning News with Ted and LaDonna. One of them was Amazon, and I told you this story yesterday in the 720 break. Amazon has contributed so much that's useful to human life. Or should I say, so much that's convenient and panders to my laziness. At times, though, the company can have a strange idea and may not have been quite thought through. I'll give you an example. Forget the example. I'll tell you what's happening here in San Diego. If you have an Amazon Prime account, and really, who hasn't been talking to that by now? You can now designate one day each week as Amazon Day. Now, this is not a day in which you get down on your knees and sing Amazon Grace to the tune of Amazing Grace and pray that Jeff Bezos opens a new headquarters in Sereno Valley or Otay or Carlsbad. Instead, Amazon Day is the day that you decide all of your Amazon deliveries come in one day. Again, it's the day that you decide you want all of your deliveries to come in one day. Well, that sounds fantastic. What could go wrong? Well, for one, I've broken this down. And by the way, this is available in San Diego now. So if you purchase something on Amazon, you can choose your Amazon Day, so everything comes at once. And that includes Saturdays and Sundays. Here's my problem. For one, it means that if one item's out of stock or late, Amazon says that it's possible your entire delivery might be delayed. And then there's this subhuman garbage I like to call porch pirates. And I have a feeling that many of the guys that steal boxes off of your doorstep would embrace this thing. If they know that I'm getting my deliveries on a Friday and my neighbor's getting them on a Tuesday, you better believe they're casing the place at that point. I mean, what if they work out exactly which day is my Amazon Day? Won't there be more enthused porch pirates to pay you a visit on that day, given their haul might be all that much greater? I personally enjoy the surprise of a package arriving at my doorstep when I don't know about it. But it brings me to Jeff Bezos and Amazon and the Amazon effect. He really has changed our lives. He is always at the cutting edge of business trends, and he made another bold announcement this week because Amazon aside from Amazon Day, which is going to become a national holiday, I'm quite certain, besides Amazon Day, Amazon is now offering employees $10,000 to quit. Let me repeat that. Amazon is now offering their employees, all right, $10,000 to quit Amazon. You might ask yourself why. Well, Jeff Bezos is a visionary. The only reason he would do that is because, first of all, he needs people. We're in a job market where it's tough to even find people to hire. The reason he did it is because he has vision. It was a decision driven by their new delivery service partner program. Amazon's going to build a network of delivery services throughout the country. They're offering $10,000 for an employee to quit and start their own package delivery business is what this is about. A lot of employees applied to be part of the program. They were unsure how to transition from my job to this. Well, Bezos gave them a push, kicked them down $10,000. And by the way, Amazon is not, in doing some research here, the first example of a company taking a creative approach to incentivizing their employee departures. Zappos, the shoe company, which is owned by Amazon, Netflix are two other companies in this department. But Amazon's decision, in my opinion, is more clever than it appears. And it's a pretty sharp move from the richest man in the world. By the way, he has $150 billion. That's 150,000 million, okay? That's a lot of zeros. First of all, if you think in terms of on a business basis why Jeff Bezos did this, it supports their business strategy. I mean, a key strategic priority for Amazon is to become less dependent on UPS and FedEx, right? So, why do I need UPS and FedEx when I can form my own delivery service partnership? They got a vision where several delivery companies provide options around the U.S. Well, they can do their own. By investing in their employees who start delivery companies, Amazon's effectively incubating the exact partners that they need with the bonus of having the strongest possible connection. This is one of the strongest things I've ever seen done in business, and this is why Jeff Bezos is such a visionary. And here's the other piece of this that you need to understand. And this is really critical, especially if you're a business owner. Ex-employees make better owners of companies that support your business than just existing businesses. It's a fantastic move by Jeff Bezos. You watch what happens to Amazon stock. All right. That does it for us. Thanks so much to Tom Del Bacarro from the Divided Era for joining us. Christina Andrade from UCSD in the Junior League. And catch me weekdays on San Diego Morning News here at Newsradio 600 KOGO, as well as KUSI Good Morning San Diego and The Big Biz Show, bigbizshow.com. For Chris Janikis, for Curtis Matovich, me, producer Lady Mary, I'm Sully, Small Business Saturday, Newsradio 600 KOGO.